Time for a movie review. And this is last year's release, Dreamland, directed by Miles Joris-Peyrafitte, and the writing by one Nicolas Zwart. The cast in the lead role is Finn Cole, who plays Eugene Evans, Margot Robbie, who plays Alison Wells, and then Eugene's parents, his stepfather George Evans, is played by Travis Fimmel, and his mother Olivia is played by Kerry Condon. He's got a half sister, Phoebe, who's played by Darby Camp, and there's also a narration by Lola Kirk that's worth noting. So this movie, well, I'm going to get on to it now, and I'm going to refer to, in part, some information I picked up from another critic, but obviously I'll also be referring to my own notes. Factual details. Miles Joris-Peyrafitte's Dreamland. It opens around the time of World War I, a time of the Great Depressions, with families of homesteaders in a field in Texas staking their claims on their own private pieces of land. One of these families is the Bakers, who moved west to become landowners, and couldn't spit it out, and as such masters of their own destinies. But this promised land doesn't for many breed wealth, and John Baker, played by Hans Christopher, who enjoys a drink, soon leaves his wife Olivia and young son Eugene for so-called better opportunities in Mexico. So we move to the 30s, and these dirt fields have grown into small farming communities, and Olivia and Eugene have been joined by Police Deputy George Evans. Olivia and George also have a daughter, as mentioned earlier, Phoebe, and they are now well situated in what is described as the Dust Bowl. American West became a story very much of broken promises and broken dreams. As the physical, social and emotional wasteland, foreclosures were everywhere, and there was a lot of anger expressed towards the government at the time. Eugene, like many, felt abandoned by this government, and Alison Wells, played by Robbie, also felt the same. But she saw a way out through becoming a bank robber, and she blows figuratively into Eugene's life like a dust storm. She blames banks and the government for losing her family home, and this to some extent is justified, and the reason behind her robbing and killing. That's her excuse to Eugene anyway. And he eventually joins her in a spree of devilment. Eugene is attracted to this older, attractive woman, but he's a little skeptical of her reasoning behind her activities, but he does eventually become a partner in crime. It plays out very similarly at that point to Bonnie and Clyde and Badlands, but regrettably it's not up to the quality of either of those movies. I guess the sort of male and female roles are a bit switched with this one, and it does fall short of those classics by some way. Pick at my notes. As you may know, I note take while I'm watching via audio, and then I collate those and put them into some sort of construction written wise to use for the review. Well, anyway, Eugene, a young boy who, as a boy, fostered an interest in comic books and ones that lauded gangsters and outlaws. And this may have some inkling as to what happened later on when he met Alison Wells. It's their freedom to indulge in crime sprees and escape the harsh life that appealed to him. Eugene later, in one scene, overhears folk talking about Alison Wells, her notoriety, and the fact that she has a bounty on her head, and he spots her picture on a poster. The cinematography on this movie is absolutely 5-star. It captures the long lens scene in other Hollywood greats like The Searchers to capture depth of field. And then we get to the point where Eugene, by pure chance, runs into Wells. Wells has just done a bank raid and has collected a shotgun wound to the leg, and she's hiding out in the barn that's owned by Eugene's stepfather. And he comes across her, and Wells, of course, has a gun, and this begins their sort of rocky relationship. Eugene decides to help Wells, and this is crucial in removing the bullet and allowing her time to recuperate. And he's sort of taken in by Wells's art of persuasion, and is lured in by her to join in on their next bank raid, and then their plan to escape to Mexico. Scene that's highly memorable is when Alison asks, can she have a bath of some description, because she feels very dirty, and she and Eugene go to a nearby lake in the middle of the night and remove all their clothes and go in for a night swim. It's really quite eye-catching, and I'd certainly suggest that you keep your eyes on the screen. But their pleasure in the lake, where they start to become a little intimate, is disturbed by a fellow landowner, and so they have to make a quick retreat out of there before things get rather messy. Hiding in the barn, Eugene takes time out to look into Alison's rap sheet. Of course, his stepfather is a policeman, so he gains access to the file fairly easily, and it sort of explains the shootout that took place, which led to her ending up in the barn. She claims that it was started by law enforcement, and to an extent we get a picture of a flashback which will go along with that, although she's not completely innocent in terms of her response. Eugene's relationship with his stepfather is, to say the least, quite strained, and once stepfather finds out that he's been tapping into the filing cabinets down at the local police station, he gets extremely irate, and this basically leads to Eugene's decision to get up and leave with Alison. In the family car, we then get to a couple on the run from the law enforcement, and this is where the similarities become quite prevalent with the two previously mentioned movies. However, although they're fugitive together, the main plot then shifts to the motel, where we have a very captivating scene where sex takes place, although there's some interesting sort of camera shots which suggest that neither particularly want to see each other completely naked. I don't know what you might make of that. But anyway, this very much symbolises the boy becoming a man, of course, and he takes that one further when he becomes an accessory to the crimes when they go to the bank for the next raid. And Eugene is clearly now a partner in the crime. It becomes a disaster, and the couple on the run then becomes the focus as law enforcement close in on them. The ending is a bit predictable, but I won't spell it out for you. But of course, the father is one of those in pursuit of these felons. It was quite nice to watch this movie because of its similarity with those two others, and of course we always like to see rebels trying to escape the clutches of the rigid sort of state apparatus vis-a-vis law enforcement. Margot Robbie has become a very talented actress, and her performance is quite strong in this. Finn Cole, yep, his role was quite believable, but the final part was pure fantasy. But of course, it makes for good filmmaking. So there's my review of this movie from 2020. It wasn't good enough for my top 10, it has to be said, but a reasonable sort of movie to watch on a Sunday afternoon. So there it is, my review of Dreamland from 2020.